In the first season of Fallout, you get what feels very much like an Obsidian Entertainment game. The people who made Fallout New Vegas, as it gives you free characters who, in some ways, you're gonna wish that you could actually play out their stories, even though watching them is perfectly fine. So, to summarize the first season, it focuses on three lead characters. One is Maximus, who is part of the Brotherhood of Steel. I wouldn't say he's a refugee, but he definitely came from a war-torn area, and his goal is to move up in ranks in order to prove himself and be like this knight of the Brotherhood that rescued him after the bombs dropped. Following that is Cooper, who is a ghoul, who's been alive since before the Great War 2077 happened, and his main focus in the first season is trying to get information on something that he's been looking for centuries, yet has struggled to find even a hint to guide him in the right direction. Lastly is Lucy, who's a vault dweller, who definitely gives you the vibe of any character you would start off a Fallout game with, in terms of you're presented with an issue early on. She's the only one adventurous or courageous enough to actually solve the problem. So off to the wasteland she goes, and she has to deal with being sheltered and naive and learning what the wasteland is truly like. And all along the way, she comes across Cooper, she comes across Maximus, and for better or worse, those relationships with those two and the other people she meets in the wasteland changes her forever. But again, this is not all about Lucy, even though she can sometimes feel like the tie that binds. It's very much free individual stories that interweave every now and then when it's convenient, or sometimes inconvenient. So top level highlight when it comes to this season 1 of Fallout is that it feels so much like a video game. Like, I guess the best example would be sort of like Grand Theft Auto 5, in terms of you getting free characters, each one definitely different in terms of where they come from, their lifestyle and everything. And it's just so difficult to not wish that you could pick a controller button in your hands and then just start playing rather than watching actors play it out, because each story feels like something I'd be actually written. Lucy's story about having to go out into the wasteland in order to complete this mission is something that feels very much like New Vegas in terms of the whole Courier storyline. Cooper looking for this thing that has been missing from his life for over 200 years. You want to go onto that tale. You want to have a sort of Western feel Fallout, even if it is still in California, and be a ghoul, which is a completely different take that I don't believe has ever been in the games. And then with Maximus, the Brotherhood of Steel is usually a regiment that you have to infiltrate. At least, let me be clear, I played the game since Fallout 3, so Fallout 3, New Vegas, Fallout 4, and I believe I played a little bit of Fallout 76, but then I got bored. But point of the matter is, I played the more modern games from the 3D era, so in those games, you didn't get to be part of the Brotherhood of Steel unless you infiltrated them, and a lot of the times it usually called for you destroying every single relationship you built up to that point. But getting to the point, what you get with Prime Video's Fallout is definitely something that feels like a writer for Obsidian, who did Fallout New Vegas, because of the issues that Obsidian had with trying to do more games because of their relationship with Bethesda, I think that's how you say the name. They decided, instead of either trying to sell the scripts to Bethesda or even make a new original game, they instead decided, you know what, I'm going to make this into a TV series. And again, it's strange, really, how it knows how to mix the tone of things being very serious, because Cooper has a shootout, I believe, in episode 2, and it's bloody, it's gruesome. This is made by the people who did Westworld, so keep your expectations at that level. Yet at the same time, it's still kind of goofy and silly and comical, like a lot of the Fallout series is, and it never gets corny. It does definitely keep the weirdness of the wasteland, and again, you just wish so much sometimes that you could actually interact and really do stuff, even if it was just a point and click adventure type of thing. But again, just watching it sometimes is good enough. With that said, I have to admit, early on, you may think two characters are going to be liabilities in this show. One is Maximus, who we just mentioned is the one who grew up in the Brotherhood of Steel. And the second one is Norman, who is Lucy's little brother. Now, the reason why Maximus came up as a low point originally is because he comes off a little bit conniving, an opportunist, but not in a way where you want to root for him or love to hate him. He kind of came off bland in some ways, and honestly, I don't want to say Lucy became a bit of a crutch for him to become a better, more interesting character, but I will say it seemed their interaction was perhaps the turning point for him. And then as he got there's so much I'm trying not to spoil right now, but as he got further into the story, you began to appreciate that just as much as Lucy is going on an adventure that requires her to evolve or grow emotionally and mentally, so does Maximus as he starts to really face a lot of the things he's been suppressing, because the Brotherhood of Steel might be a brotherhood, but it's not necessarily a healthy family. For Maximus was bullied for a good portion of his time there. I don't know if he ever really got the kind of mental or emotional therapy or assistance to get over the fact that his whole family got wiped out when he was a kid. So you can see as time goes on and you get to learn his story, that when it comes to bonding with people, when it comes to trusting people, being vulnerable, it takes a lot of effort for him to not stick to the Brotherhood's values of you have to be strong, you have to be tough, you have to do what it takes. And if that calls for wiping out an entire village, town, or whatever, as long as you get the artifact, as long as you get the job done, that's it. And him kind of switching over to trying to balance the teachings of the Brotherhood while also learning there's more out there that could allow him to not only survive but potentially thrive, it makes his journey more interesting. Now, as for Norman, Lucy's little brother, who doesn't leave Vault 33, his situation's different. For him, it's less about him as a character, more about the story. Because with his story, what he's investigating is a mystery, and if you've ever played the Fallout games, you know that almost every single vault has something weird or kooky going on, and his whole storyline is about trying to figure out what's going on in his vault as he starts to recognize a few odd things, especially because his vault is shared. Well, the way his vault is laid out, it's his vault, which is Vault 33, then there's Vault 32 and Vault 31, and he spent most of his life in Vault 33, so as situations happen, so comes the curiosity about Vault 32, and then Vault 31, and while you will never probably get into Norman, because Norman's presented to us as somebody who doesn't take initiative, is not that interested in the various aspects of running a vault. At the very least, as his storyline gets further along, a lot of mysteries get solved in terms of what's going on in the vaults. You at least can get into what he's going to discover. And I can't really go beyond that because the embargo is still on for spoilers. The next highlight is, when it comes to any adaptation, whether it's video games, books, what have you, there's always that line that has to be walked between trying to make things simple enough for people who don't know nothing about the franchise, yet at the same time, for people who do know the franchise, make it rewarding and not feel watered down or feel like they're straying too much from what's canon. Now, according to a Deadline article, what you see in this series is canon, which helps immensely for people like me who've never played Fallout 1, 2, Tactics, and there's another one that came out that I don't remember the name of. So for us, it's good because if you play Fallout 3, 4, 76, etc., you have an idea of who the Brotherhood of Steel is. You have an idea of what ghouls are, the different abominations, and some of the history of the Fallout universe. And this builds upon that. But for those who've never played the games, it's all very much broken down in simple terms, and none of it is dwelled on to the point where you feel like you have to go to a Wikipedia article or a video that's recapping the entire Fallout universe in order to know what the hell is going on. There are situations while Lucy is doing her adventures where she, who's already a history buff, learns about what happened during the Great War and other times bombs were dropped or battles. Then, of course, there's Cooper, who, being that Cooper is not only a ghoul, but somebody we see both before the bombs drop and then in his ghoul form, you're allowed to see what led up to the bombs dropping, as well as life after the bombs dropped. And unfortunately, Maximus doesn't add to that, but again, between Norman giving you an idea of how weird the bolts are, Cooper giving you past and present, and then Lucy giving you full-on present, reconciling the simple version of what happened with the complexities of the different recollections, or else the truth, which is out in the wasteland. Eventually you get a full story that makes you almost wish that, again, that this was an actual video game, because one of the things that happens in the games is that you get a lot of these little consoles that give you long text stories about what happened in this vault, what happened in this organization. And many times it feels like the show is tapping into some of those little stories and trying to expand on them, if not giving you a sense that while it can't go really as deep as it could or wants to, at least wants you to understand this is what happened here, this is what happened there. And it always feels like a treat, at least as somebody who played some of the games. The last highlight does is just, when it comes to this, nothing feels formulaic or like it's made simply to pander to a certain audience. In the world of Fallout, really there's no such thing as villains. There's people who could definitely be seen as anti-heroes, but for the most part, people just do what it takes to survive. Yes, the Brotherhood likes to harbor any type of old world technology and keep it from the masses, and are definitely like World America, what is it? I forgot the name of the movie, but basically they try to be the world's police with their giant power armor, huge guns, and basically military industrial complex to the next level. But even though they're very violent, they're anti-ghoul and who knows what else, you recognize that they're just trying to play out a means of survival in which law and order controls everything, so that one day maybe civilization can return. And with that in mind, like everybody else, they saw what happened when different countries, mankind in general, got a hold of destructive technology and almost wiped out humanity. So them harboring everything is a means to prevent that. So you get it. The same goes when it comes to Cooper. Cooper may be a ghoul who definitely has some times when he's a bit of a cannibal. He may shoot indiscriminately because he does kill a kid in the show. Well, not a kid, he's definitely a teenager, but still definitely not 18. But point is, Cooper may be somebody who is indiscriminate in terms of killing people and doing horrible things, but at the same time, because there's that balance between who he was in the past and who he is in the present, you just realize that in his mind, to be a survivor means you can't be too vulnerable, you can't be wishy-washy. He's somebody who doesn't have a travel companion. He's a ghoul, so most of the world is always on edge because they think he may go feral. So he had to toughen up. He has to keep up with his drug regimen in order to not go feral. And to survive and reach his goal, he will do what it takes. And you may not like it, but you get it. And for some, you may even respect it when you find out what he's looking for. And heck, even with Lucy. Lucy is the type who is an underdog, and you can see as somebody who's instantly likable because, she's this naive girl who hasn't been to the surface ever and didn't think within her lifetime that it will be safe enough to go on the surface. And as you see her meet people and try to be in peace, and you see her go on to this journey which kind of darkens her, it doesn't feel like you're ever given this generic coming of age type story. Yes, there are some beats when it comes to her which you're kind of like, okay, but I feel like as someone who's seen multiple Ella Purnell, or some I say that name right, type of shows and movies, whether it's Yellow Jackets or even that one with Strange Kids, which the movie can't come to mind, but I did read the books and whatever. Anyway, the point of the matter is, when it comes to this show, the characters are all given a certain amount of layers to keep you engaged and interested. In the case of people like Norman, even if the character itself doesn't get the kind of development that will make them interesting or make some kind of complexity, they're given a story that compensates for that greatly so that nobody feels like a liability. Nobody feels like they're just there for the sake of having a famous name, diversity, or anything like that. Their character matters in the grand scheme of things, and it is made to further along what Fallout as a series whole is trying to give you, which leads it on the fence topic. One of the main issues anyone who watches season 1 is going to have is that it leaves so much for season 2 to pick up on. And granted, it's a good thing that it seems so far that there's going to be a season 2 based off of Prime Video and its partners getting tax credits from California. But I put it this way. There are multiple characters who you get the minimal amount of information about, and it frustrates you so much that you're going to have to wait for likely 1 to 2 years, depending if there's ever a strike again, in order to find out if we're going to learn more information, will there be more flashbacks to flesh things out or not, and that could be upsetting. It's not going to be something that's going to make you punch your computer screen or TV screen, however you want to watch the show, but it's definitely going to be something that makes you feel that they could have added 2 more episodes to flesh things out, that they could have lingered a little bit more in certain times and spaces in order to give you answers. And honestly, it's not the worst thing that we don't get answers to certain things. It just can feel a bit frustrating that it, as much as you recognize that the penultimate episode is going to give you a cliffhanger, it's even more frustrating that every time you get an answer to one question, the next question that follows it up is even bigger. And I'm remembering all the reasons why the finale is by no means terrible, but also just frustrating. And again, I mean, let's wrap this up because I'm getting annoyed, mainly at all the things that I wish that were covered. But point of the matter is, when it comes to watching Fallout, in many ways, it's like watching any adaptation, whether you're talking about a manga, a book, what have you. And what it gives you is that sense of, this is not the whole story. You're going to have to wait to get the whole story. But there are multiple avenues outside of this that you can read, you can watch, you can play. And with that, you can get a little bit more to hold you over until we continue. And while the promise of discontinuing doesn't take away from the annoyance that every show has in terms of not giving you a complete story or even a complete chapter, but instead giving you a cliffhanger to make you clamor for more, at the very least, you're given a quality season, which is not an adaptation of any of the games, so it's not like someone can really spoil it for you outside of when you see the various articles and reactions online. But this is instead an original story, and it's an original story that knows how to take a world, take the type of characters that people, gamers, are used to, and with that, really utilize everything that makes the games great and bring it to a TV screen, computer screen, whatever, and make it clear why this franchise has been around since the 90s.